Um,
Mhm.
I just don't. Age, I'm not sure. Like, there's in a lot of those cultures, Shan. What do you think about the fact that there's no word for divorce? You on mute? Oh, you
Okay.
good?
What you say again?
Yeah.
You said,
So, hey, Shan, don't fall asleep with your eyes
I'm
open now.
not. I'm not. I just wanted you to repeat it again.
Yeah. So there's like in the Middle East, a lot of those cultures,
Hmm.
there's marriage, but there's no word for divorce. People sacrifice and make do. Do you think we're better off?
I think it should be the same way on this side because it's a lot of
Mm,
divorce and
yeah.
people just don't work at trying to stay together.
Mm,
And I just think, um, I guess back to the freedom.
mm-hmm.
I think that does get in the way of a lot of women being dominant, and the marriages just don't work after that.
What would you say if I told you the stats say between 70 and 80% of the marriages are dissolved by women?
Hmm. I didn't know that.
But now that you know, how you feel about it?
Something to think about.
Okay. And so can I just dip in there real quick?
Go
So
ahead.
I want to get Rotunda in, but
No,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
bro.
Yeah, Ratana, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Adrian. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to talk about the divorce rate.
Uh huh.
And the divorce rate has increased. I will not deny that. But
Mm-hmm.
understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, best believe if women could have supported themselves, they probably would have got divorced back then too. They stayed around because they couldn't work. They stayed around because they were depending upon this man. And so he didn't do a super chat. Why is his
I've
damn
been
thing?
sharing more.
Oh, okay. Share my girl Racine too.
Okay.
Um, and so there are times when divorce is necessary because of abuse. Women were getting their heads beat in before. They were getting cheated on left and right. But they felt they had to stay. It wasn't they stayed out of love. They stayed because they had to. They felt
Mm-hmm.
they had to, put it that way, because they weren't getting hired. They weren't getting
Mm-hmm.
paid. They had all these freaking kids because that's what they felt they should have done and had to do. So I just want to make sure we're giving all of the variables on why divorces increase. Should people try to work it out? Yes, absolutely. But part of that working it out, I think that it takes two people to make a marriage work, and we all know that. We all realize that.
Do you
So I just
do
want
you,
to make sure we're clear.
do you think the lack of faith that we have now has is also another reason for the higher rates of divorce?
You have to leave Rotunda.
Rotunda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
love. Go
What
ahead.
was,
Go ahead, Rotunda. Do you
what was
think
the question?
some of those things love mentioned could be true? I think that's the color purple syndrome. Do you think that a lot of this is also because we lack so much faith now? Like I'm always talking about our community.
Yeah.
So like our Christianity ain't the Christians ain't Christians anymore.
No,
Because
I don't think that's the case. I'm gonna give an example, and I want
okay,
to. Let's go back to those Eastern countries over there.
sure.
Let's be clear that if a man in those Eastern countries, including Dubai, abuse, murder, or do anything to their wives that disavows their families, society deals with them. Let's be clear about that. There may not be a word for divorce, but their communities and their societies deal with them. That's one. The second thing I'm going to say is this, to piggyback off what Love said. My paternal grandparents were married until they each passed away.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother said one day to me that she pulled a gun out on my grandfather because he put his hands on her. And as she got older, she said something to me, because me and my ex-husband at the time were arguing in front of her. And she said, I didn't go through what I went through for her to go through what I went through. And I need for everybody to understand that, yes, a lot of us are getting married and we may not know what marriage is. We may not know the ins and the outs, and we may not have had the time to sit and study somebody or even learn that process. But that high divorce rate here has a whole lot to do with knowing and learning yourself first. It has very little to do with religion or me wanting to make more money than my spouse. It has a lot to do with just not really knowing yourself and knowing what it is that you want in your life. What do you want in a spouse? I agree with you, Ham, when you said I don't think people really know we don't know what y'all want. And I agree that with Chris, I don't think we take the time to know what people want to be in a marriage, and like Shannon said, work it through. But I think that's a life lesson. I don't think it has anything to do with women advancement or anything. That is just a part of being a human being.
Okay, so you got divorced.
I did.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on your question about the church, religion being responsible for divorce. I feel like it is to a certain extent, because a lot of church mentality, like Christianity, was very boxed in, and it kept a lot of people in bondage. And a lot of that bondage does relate to marriage, because back in the day, it's like if you got divorced, you were going to hell. A lot of the repercussions of the church, and not only with just divorce, like homosexuality, all that other stuff, is like you're going to hell. And so people were fearful of that, so they stayed in whatever situation that looked like. And now it's like, as generations go on, people are getting further and further away from religion and more into spirituality. It kind of frees people up, and they're allowed to grow into themselves and who they were supposed to be. And as you grow, you sometimes realize that the person that you're with, you're not growing with them anymore. You're growing apart. So it's not that you don't love that person anymore, but you just you're not a match. You were never really a match, because you were never really yourself. You were going along with what you were told to do.
But what's the percentage of so-called Black Americans that identify as Christian?
I don't know that statistic, but I feel like a lot of us will just throw that name around willy-nilly, because that's how a lot of us were raised.
Well, I guess my question is, people are still identifying as such, so what changed about the Bible?
Nothing changed. I feel like the Bible didn't change. It was the pastors that were preaching the stuff incorrectly, and people realized that they needed to get away from that.
Okay, so what did it say about homosexuality that changed?
You're saying the Bible or the people?
The Bible. Like, what did it say differently 60 years ago than it says now? I'm just trying to understand. Like, are you saying that people are just disregarding, which is my initial statement about the loss of faith?
No, so I'm basically saying that certain things, and I used homosexuality as an example, amongst other things, marriage and stuff, kept people a certain way, like in bondage mentally. Okay. Right? So not being able to grow because you're listening to someone saying like, hey, if you wear jewelry to church, you're going to hell. If you wear makeup to church, you're going to hell. That type of stuff keeps people where they are instead of them being able to grow.
So go ahead, Mary.
Do you believe that people shouldn't get married? Because to me, primarily marriage is a religious thing.
So I feel like what Ratonda was saying earlier is that before you get married, you should know yourself, and not yourself based on what somebody is telling you or what, you're boxed in religion. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with religion, but I feel like.
Well, Chris, hold on. You are right. You're saying that boxed in, somebody was teaching it wrong. They got away from become spirituality. So you would be saying by nature of that there's a problem with religion.
Okay, so we were talking about Christianity, right? So if we really look at that and we go back, so that religion was taught to us as slaves to keep us in check. So you have to look at it and see how Christianity has evolved over the years So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with religion or spirituality, but the way that it was taught to us was incorrect. So I mean, the Bible is not wrong. It was taught to us the wrong way, and we held on to that stuff. And now a lot of people like my parents are just now realizing, and they're getting free of those things that they're taught. So I don't think there's anything wrong with marriage or with religion, but like Ratonda said, you got to know yourself before you get with somebody else. You have to grow yourself. That way, when you are growing in a relationship or in a marriage, you're growing together the right way. You're not growing apart, you're growing together.
Okay. Sis. Hold on, Mary. Sis. Shan, you had something on it? Well, I just want to ask a question.
Like, I totally agree with everything she just said.
So Shan, let me ask you this question then. In the New Testament, the Bible says you can only divorce for adultery. So it doesn't even say anything about like physical abuse, unfortunately, but it's very specific based on what Jesus said that you can only divorce for adultery. So that hasn't changed, and that's not a misinterpretation. So what do we do with that?
I can't even answer that one right there.
Well, no, and I'm not trying to trip.
I didn't live my life on
okay
divorcing for. And someone asked how many people on the panel was married. I'm divorced.
Okay,
I was married.
Gotcha.
Well, I didn't know that the question was whether divorce is right or wrong. I thought you just said like why are the divorce rates high? So that's kind of what my response was too. Is just people are growing out of
Yeah, no, I got it. But I guess the one point, Love, you can answer. The one point, Chris, you said that they were teaching it incorrectly. So I think some things, such as women adorn themselves in modest apparel, could have been skewed because the Israelites used to be decked out, right? Just as an example. But in terms of divorce, it's very explicit. Go ahead, Love.
Okay, so much was said, and I'm hoping I didn't mislead my thought, but religion was weaponized and still is weaponized, and I have a problem with that. It's been weaponized against us. Christianity has morphed over the millennia. The Bible as we have it now is not comprehensive. It is not all inclusive of all of the books. Some are taken out. I think that expanded consciousness is the way to go. And so if you want to be a Christian or whatnot, there's nothing wrong with that. And I identify as that. But I'm expanded consciousness Christian, right? And so I understand that those 66 books in the Bible, there's more books than that. I understand that the oldest Bible is a Coptic Bible in Ethiopia. I understand that. I understand that. What, sir? You're shaking your head. We have to listen with the open mind, right?
Oh no, I was just in terms of the oldest. It's not right, but go ahead.
It's older than the King James. I might have got the number wrong, but it's definitely older than King James. The point is, the one that we are looking at and that we use and has been weaponized, that's not the oldest one. That has been sliced, diced, chopped, and screwed. Not saying that there's not things in there that are good for us, but a lot of that has been misinterpreted and misaligned purposely to control people. And even to this day, people will beat you over the head and weaponize it against you to beat you into submission to do certain things and to think certain ways. And as people have begun with the expanded consciousness, that's when I think, it's like, well, maybe I don't want to get married. Maybe I don't need to get married. Or maybe the way I used to think is not the end all be all. And that's all I'm saying. And so now that women are expanding their thoughts and the way they think,
they're super single, right?
Well, I mean, super single is not a read. And so it's funny because I get that a lot. One of the questions was how many women are married on the panel. It doesn't matter. Like, being single is not a read at all.
That was based on the convo, right? It's just specific to the conversation.
I want to be very clear. I just want to be very clear. I just want to say this, and I'm going to be quiet. Let someone else
talk. All right, go ahead. Do you think?
Being single is not a negative or a bad thing. Sometimes, and some people, women, because we're talking about women, like they always try to read women by you single. Well, that's not a read, because some people choose to be single because they love themselves. They they feel complete and content and whole with being who they are, and they understand that before I connect with somebody else, I want to ensure that it's value add. If there's no value add, then why do it? And so if I don't see a value add, I'm not missing on anything about being married. I don't need the money. But extra income be nice? Of course it would, but not to my detriment of my peace of mind, not to the detriment of my soul. You know, women also want spiritual enlightenment from men. You see a lot of women in the church because women are naturally very spiritual. I believe that women are very connected to God. I really do. I think that's how we're made. But I ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole. I'm gonna let somebody else talk. But I can talk about this all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thoughts that you shared resound with the masses, because it's easier, right? Because if you go through the Bible and really read it and follow the commandments, it's super hard, right? For niggas especially. So I think what you say is flowing. Like, it's like, yeah, you could do this or that and fuck all that. And Jesus was bullshitting, you know what I mean? So I get it. Well, not saying you was going that far, but people can take it. Because what was it called? Something consciousness?
Expanded consciousness.
Right. That's like a sanitation specialist, is a janitor, or what they call them, environmental specialist. Or
environmental tech is what Mary said.
Right. Environmental
he's
tech.
a janitor.
Yeah, he flushing the toilet like a motherfucker, but all of a sudden he an environmental tech.
Because he's ensuring the environment is clean and safe.
Exactly.
So there's an expanded role.
Well, no, you don't. I don't want to. I'm just saying, just in terms of, I get it, and I think the world will align itself with that in the West, because it seems a little bit more free flowing, which would seem to be easier.
Never mind. Go ahead.
Just based on, right, just because of the flow of it. Ratonda, did you have something on that specific? Because I wanted to ask Sis a question.
I mean, Ham, you said there was no divorce in the New Testament.
I didn't say that.
You did say that.
I said that you can only divorce for adultery.
You said you can only divorce for adultery, but that's not true. 1 Corinthians states, chapter 7, verse 15. Let's do facts. I told
he said. So you want me to tell it to you, or you want to read it?
I'm saying it to you. It says, but if the unbelieving
partner, let her go, right? Let her depart, right? That's not divorce.
That is divorce, because you can get a divorce without anybody signing.
No, he said if the other wants to go, you let him. You can't force him to stay.
Let him go.
But that's not divorce. Go to
that is divorce.
We could do this later. Go to 1 Corinthians 5 to get the context, and then you read up and you'll understand that.
Let's do that later.
Because you notice how I knew where you're going, because you think Paul is speaking law. He's speaking his opinion. If you keep reading,
1 Corinthians was the beginning of when they started to establish the law because of all the ungodly things that were going on.
You have no clue what it is that they're saying there. Go to 1 Corinthians 5 first, then you can read up.
About it later, but that's that thing Chris was talking about, where people was misinterpreting what the word was talking about.
No,
you gotta go to what was going on during that time.
You see how I knew what you were saying? And that's only in Corinth. But also, if you keep reading the 30, Paul will tell you he's giving his opinion. Now, if you go to Matthew 5, start at 17, get to verse 30, Jesus will tell you the actual law, because he's Jesus.
Okay.
But we don't need to go on that. We can get edified on that later. Yeah, but Paul doesn't create law. The law comes from Moses.
He wasn't creating law. He was establishing a standard because of the ungodly things that were going on.
Exactly. What was happening in Corinth in chapter 5? The men were sleeping with their father's wives.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I said ungodly things. That's what I said.
Yeah, but if you go to Leviticus 18, that's in there. See, you gotta just chill. I'm not trying to do that because it's not gonna go how we think it's gonna go.
Is for anyway. Sis, you don't ask Sis a question.
Yeah, it just get ugly for people, like, you know what I'm saying. So, Sis, damn, I forgot, because I was about to smoke Ratonda boots on that shit, but I didn't want to.
As I'm new.
Nah, yeah, you my man's though. But yeah,
I'm not a man.
You my man's whatever. I thought you said we could call people. See, now you confused.
I'm not a man, yo.
I don't know, man. I'm just, you all right. But yeah.
Listen, before let me, you ain't even let me talk. But so I'm trying to get some. Here she go. I'm trying to get some understanding in regards to what Asia was saying as well. Now, I understand.
No, but you have a question for her, Mary? Because I do want to get to the next topic.
I want to make a statement.
right.
Well, kind of a question, I guess. Question is in there. So,
Okay.
do y'all believe at the same time that religion that we all don't, some people don't like so much, that religion has been the reason why marriages have actually stayed together, in a benefit point of view? Because I feel like and I mentioned it on the podcast before, I feel like with religion or some type of belief, this world will be chaotic as fuck. So there has to be some kind of structure, some kind of belief in regards to, of course, like marriage, people keeping their vows. You know what? Let me do right because I made this vow under God, whoever you call your higher power. So I wouldn't look at religion as being something that would negatively affect the marriage because you're supposed to stay together. Because I've seen the benefit where it's like, you know what? We're having a rough patch in our marriage. Let's go to church. Let's talk to, a pastor. Let's talk to, somebody where we can kind of refocus the reason why we got married and things like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that only works when you're equally yoked, though. Like she was saying earlier, like religion is not gonna help you when you were never supposed to be together in the first place.
Well, I'm saying it brings structure. It brings a type of structure.
No, I agree with you on a case by case basis.
Yeah, because it's like I said, like I believe marriage is. I'm not technically a religious person, but I believe marriage is a religious act because you're making a vow under whoever your higher power is to abide by these laws or rules or regulations or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So I don't look at it as a bad perspective.
Yeah. Final thoughts on this topic. Sis, you got anything? I know we kind of veered a little bit. Because I just wanted to kind of point out some of those crazy things that men think. Like no male friends. Oh, let me ask this just to sis. Oh, Ratonda, did you want to comment on what Mary said real quick? Okay.
No, I think she's on point. I think it just, yes, structure is needed. I just think, like Chris said, like Love said, you have to be equally yoked. You have to really want that and believe in going to church for that structure.
Yeah, fuck church. Sis.